Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Soccer Queens podcast, where we discuss everything female athlete performance training. I got Breanne Smedley back on the show, and she has been on the show before to discuss the mental side of the game and also how moms can help their daughters build their confidence. So, Breanne, welcome back.
Thank you. I'm happy to be back.
We're so excited. Now, can you just remind everyone what you're up to today and who you're working with?
Yeah, absolutely. So I work with female athletes on the mental side of their game. And I also work with the moms of these female athletes to help them help their daughters through this journey. So we teach athletes all the skills that they need to be able to perform at a high level and navigate the very normal experiences of being an athlete. But then we also recognize the enormous um, impact that moms have on their athlete daughters' confidence. And we also recognize that moms aren't typically equipped with much coaching or skills on how to help their daughters through their athletic experience. So that is how I also support them.
Yeah, you have such a unique program in that you do include the moms in the conversation as well as the daughters. And I think a lot of people are wondering, well, what am I looking for in a mental coach, and when should I start working with one? And kind of like strength and conditioning, the mental training space is getting really saturated with a lot of people, and it's kind of hard to sift through who you should work with. So, what are some of your tips on finding the right mental coach?
Yeah. I mean, you bring up a good point. I think it is becoming saturated because people are understanding and realizing how important the mental game is to performance. And I grew up always hearing like the game, I played volleyball and a lot of other sports, but the game is like 80% mental. You have all these numbers thrown around. Like, I'm not sure that there's any like scientific, how much of it is mental. But 80% mental and 20% physical. And then we don't really work on like the mental side of the game. And when we say mental side, we mean like preparation and how an athlete can play really well in practice, but then they don't play that well in a game. The skills, they have the same skills that they had in practice the day before, but for some reason they can't execute those skills in a game. And typically that is a result of a lack of mental training or lack of skills to be able to handle pressure. And then there's coming back from mistakes, having the skills to come back from an error in a competition or in a practice and not start the spiral of negative thinking. Like, these are all skills that athletes need to be able to play really well. And typically we see moms or coaches or, parents just being like, they need to be mentally tough and just bounce back and be confident. And we're like, well, we haven't taught them how to do these things. It's just like a physical skill. We can't expect our athletes to be able to execute anything physically that we haven't taught them in practice first. And so all of these are skills that athletes need to learn. And the best athletes at any level are also training their minds. You hear from Olympic athletes, collegiate athletes, and they talk about, having a routine before they go out and play. They have systems that they fall back on. They have a way to shift their negative self-talk. It's not that they don't ever not believe in themselves or they don't ever make mistakes. It's that they know how to work through those things. So I think that people are recognizing this more and more. And it's not just, when I was in college, we did have a sports psychologist on our staff and, we were really lucky to have that, but now it's kind of going down further and further, which is so great. And mental health is, at a forefront right now. And so, I get it. And, I think in order to decide, like, if your daughter should be, honing in on her mental skills or even getting a mental performance coach, there's a couple questions that we ask. Like, first is, how old is she? As athletes, I can't, I think that the younger the better for athletes to be able to learn skills on how their mind is working for and against them, and like realizing that they have power over their thoughts, and they don't have to believe everything they think, and being able to shift. But we see the sweet spot of athletes entering into our program around 11 and 12, and this is kind of when they start to get a little bit further along in their sport. Maybe they're just starting their sport for the first time, but they're getting a little more competitive. They're starting to handle some of the pressures. Maybe they're making mistakes and they are feeling bad about themselves, and they're just kind of to notice other people. And so that's kind of where we see a sweet spot around like the 11, 12 and all the way up. We have athletes that are up to, 18 and into college. The other question we ask is, what are her goals? And if she has any sort of goals of, playing beyond high school, of being, great in her sport, but also goals of like having fun and connecting with her teammates, then for sure it's not just the physical training. And when we talk about, elite athletes and ones that are going on to play it at the next level, which I know, and a lot of your athletes in your programs are there, those athletes are all great. And what separates them is not just their physical skill, it's also their ability to handle pressure and come back from mistakes. And so, if she's got big goals, she's also needs to be training her mind. And then the third thing that we ask moms and we look at is, what is she experiencing in your sport that is not going her way? Is she having some like anxiety? Is she not able to manage those nerves before a game? As a mom, are you struggling with not knowing what to say to her when she's had a bad game and she's spiraling and she can't get out of this like negative self-talk? And all of that behavior is just a window to the fact that she doesn't have skills to navigate that. It's not that anything's wrong with her. It's just she hasn't developed these skills yet. So that's kind of where we start. I know you also asked, like, what do we look for in a mental training program? But I've been talking for a while. So yeah.
Well, you bring up a good point there that it's just not enough for adults to tell their girls, oh, just bounce back and it'll
Mhm.
be better next time. And I remember when you gave a presentation on one of our group calls
Yeah.
on bouncing back from mistakes and just some of the routines that you're equipping your girls with to be able to handle them in a productive way. And I think a lot of people have this misconception that mental skills training is for people who are like reactive and like just
Mhm.
hiring someone because something's wrong with them, but it's useful for athletes who are even considering themselves okay mentally and good. So,
Right.
do you just want to get into that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because a lot of times when moms are like, this would be so great for my daughter, but I don't want her to think that something's wrong with her, or like she's hesitant because she thinks that like I'm saying she's, something's wrong with her and she's not doing well. And when in reality, it's, even if athletes are performing okay and they're doing all right and mentally they feel strong, they're connected, with their teammates and all of that, like they're not struggling. Mental training is great for, athletes who are struggling, but it's even better when we preload these skills because your athlete 100%, like it is 100% guaranteed that your athlete is going to face challenges in their sport. Like that's one of the reasons why we like sports is because they push them out of their comfort zone and they get to handle adversity and teammate drama and like mistakes and not getting what she wants. And if she doesn't know, like if she hasn't faced any of those things yet, or she's been navigating them okay, then she's going to in the future. And so it's equipping her ahead of time with how to handle all of that, and then also gives her a competitive edge. We tell athletes, especially specifically when we're talking about like coming back from mistakes, if it takes an athlete like, you know, 30 seconds to come back from a mistake, but you play a sport, like if you play volleyball or basketball or soccer, where you're required to get back in the game faster than that, like the next serve is coming 10 seconds and it takes you 30 seconds to get over a mistake, then we're pulling you out. Like you're not going to be successful because you're stuck in the past, worried about what you just did, or you're worried about the future. And so the athlete that can come back faster has a competitive advantage over the athlete that doesn't. And then the athlete that has a mom, if we're going to go there, or a parent that knows what to say before, during, and after a game, that athlete also has a competitive advantage over the athlete who has a parent who is just like saying stuff that's harmful without even knowing it, and just like ruining kind of her preparation for that. So, it's not just for like struggles that are happening, but it's also like a way for an athlete to level up and have a competitive advantage in her sport.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And these things that you're equipping girls with, you also bring the moms into
Yeah.
the discussion because as mentors, we can educate our young athletes and, get on a Zoom call and just give them the right tools. But then it's like they go back to the household and we don't really know what's going on there. So, what's so
Yeah.
unique about what you're doing in your programs is you are including the moms in the conversation. So, how can what the moms are doing impact a daughter's confidence and some of the things that they're modeling?
Yeah. Yeah, this is kind of like our secret sauce. So, in our programs where we originally just kind of a back on the back end of this, we started our program just for female athletes and just giving them the skills. And just like you said, it was great to a point until we realized like there's a missing piece here because what we're equipping you with is in some ways being undone when your mom is telling you like unhelpful things before you go compete. And then moms were also reaching out to us and being like, what do I say to her? Like she's being negative right now. And I'm just telling her to stop. And telling her to just focus on the positives when in reality that actually lowers her confidence long term. Okay. And we can get it. We talk about that in our program. But moms, we lean into the mom daughter relationship because we just know that there is a really significant dynamic there. Our daughter's confidence is linked to her mom's confidence. And our daughter's mental training and skills is actually linked to her mom's. And it's not identical, but moms are the closest example of confidence in an athlete daughter's life. And whether or not you think that she's picking up on anything you do, she is. Like you are the closest and most influential example that she's living in every single day. Like we tell moms, you shape the environment for her and you provide the opportunities for her. So opportunities like physical training, mental training, opportunities for her to develop her skills. And then also you have an enormous role in how you shape the environment that she shows up in every single day. And we specifically, there's verbal and nonverbal ways that you shape the environment. So verbally, moms are shaping the environment by what they say before, during, and after games, and also just in their ongoing training phase. We talk about there's 4 phases to an athlete's competition and what she says to her daughter in those phases. So ongoing training, pre-competition, during, and post really impacts how her daughters show up in competition and just in daily life. And then the nonverbal communication is what a mom thinks and says about herself and her habits, because what you say out loud about yourself, I mean, I'm speaking to moms right now, I'm a mom too, what we say out loud about ourselves actually becomes our daughter's inner voice. And we can say so many things about our daughters, and we should, that they're capable, beautiful, smart, like all of these things that we probably do all the time. But if we are being self-deprecating and we're saying negative things about ourselves and we're not actually modeling the resilience that we want our daughters to have, then that is actually what they're internalizing. They're looking at us and they're seeing like, okay, well, that, I am a mom, I look a lot like my mom, I'm connected to my mom, and this is what she's saying about herself, and that is what she's internalizing as her inner voice. So yeah, I know that that's a lot, but it's very, very linked there, moms and daughters.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of moms, everyone means well and wants to be as
Mhm.
positive as they can for their girl, but sometimes they just don't realize it. And
Yeah.
it's just like that self-reflection or working with you and being like, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this behavior." So what
Mhm.
are some things that moms are doing that might be causing their daughters lack in confidence or performance anxiety that they might not be aware of?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we talk about how there's four main roles in any athlete competition. 4 main roles. So there's the athlete herself, there's the coach, the ref, and the parent. And our athletes thrive and do best when everyone stays in their role. So, when moms start to get into other roles, that's when it gets really messy. And so the athlete is the athlete. When moms, and I say moms, like I said, we really lean into this relationship, but this applies to dads too and parents. When we start to become the athlete, meaning we are imposing, and a lot of moms do this subconsciously, our own wants and wishes for our athlete's success, and thinking it's like our journey instead of our athlete's journey. And we, especially when we have moms who are former athletes, I mean, even like myself, I see this in myself with my own daughter. I'm like, gosh, she could be so good, and I want her to get this scholarship. And this is an extreme example, but it is what happens all the time. Like we think we have a path that we think our daughters should go through and go down, when half the time I'm talking to athletes, they're like, I just want to have fun. Like my mom wants me to play in college, but like I just want to play and have fun. And so when we start to like think it's more of our experience rather than our athlete daughter's experience, then it starts to make it really tough for the athlete. When we step into the coach role, when moms start to provide like coaching and tips and reminders. And again, this all comes from such a great place. They're trying to be helpful, but your daughter already knows how important the game is. She already knows that she messed up last time and she doesn't want to do it again. And so when we like bring in those reminders and those coaching, we step out of our role, which is being the parent and the supporter. Now the ref, like hopefully we're not refing, but we hear them on the sidelines. We're like double, like we all do that sometimes, but yeah, don't be the ref. You're the parent and the supporter. So again, like I said, athletes do best when we stay in that role. So we provide the opportunities, we shape the environment, we are the supporter, and we go through a whole framework on how to approach our athlete daughters before, during, and after games so that we stay in the role and we best support them so that they can just thrive and be confident. So that's kind of the main one. Stay in your role. And then when moms focus so much on outcomes rather than what's in an athlete's control, we also add unneeded pressure, anxiety. We lower their confidence long term when we are focusing on that, because now they are thinking that they have to do that in order to gain approval. And that's how I make my mom happy, is by doing really well. And, outcomes are actually out of athletes' control, like whether they win or lose and what they, their stats and all of that. Like we think that they're in our athletes' control, but really there's so many other factors that go into it. And so focusing instead on what's in her control, like her work ethic, her attitude, her preparation, her ability to be a good teammate, like all of those things take the pressure off of the outcome and allow athletes to just do their thing. And then what we find is they actually get better outcomes when they do that. So yeah, those are two main things.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you about the outcome when the mom kind of just like leans back and just lets go of micromanaging all those roles. And yeah,
Mhm.
usually the daughter ends up doing really well. And
Yeah.
as you were like talking about all those roles that sometimes moms play, I'm like, dang, it sounds stressful to do all of that. So
Yeah.
it's also like relieving for moms to like take that
Mhm.
burden off and just be the supporter, be the parent. You don't need a ref or coach or be the nutritionist. It's
Yeah.
really, like, relieving for them too.
Exactly. No, so many moms say that. They're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, this is such a breath of fresh air. I don't need to do all of these things." So, yeah.
Yeah, that's just such a relief, and you're right, the moms, they want to control outcomes, but
Mhm.
realistically, we don't know what's going to happen, and we provide the best opportunities we can for our girls, they work as
Mhm.
hard as they can, but trying to micromanage that outcome is just a losing game, and it
Yeah.
ends up being so much more stress on the mom and the dad too.
Yeah, and the athlete herself. She's
Yeah, absolutely. Now, are there any other tips for moms you'd have for their daughter's mental game if they can't maybe work with a mental coach right now? I know that what you and I offer, it's kind of a luxury. So, what are
Yeah.
some like actionable things that people can do right now?
Yeah, well, we do have some free resources too, like podcasts, and I have a free training for moms that go over a lot of this stuff. And in the podcast, in the trainings, we well, first of all, like staying in your role is a huge one for what moms can do. Okay. So just like, even if you take that step now, like pull back on trying to coach her, pull back on trying to like think of this as your journey. Instead being that supporter and seeing her as more than just an athlete and pulling out, those positive innate qualities about her that, her sport is what she does. It's not who she is. So that's like a big thing for moms. For athletes, the biggest thing, I don't want to say biggest, but one of the most important is being able to become aware of her thoughts and challenging them and shifting them. Like that's a huge part. We also go into breath work and visualization. So being able to like use the breath to regulate the nervous system, being able to visualize the athlete she wants to become and visualize how her response to mistakes, visualize what she wants to do out there. And so those are like very key tangible things that we want athletes to be able to do and just have in their back pocket is breath work and really solid visualization. But the skill of being able to like become aware of an athlete's thought and shift it is like it's really important because most athletes just believe everything that they think, and that's where you see and you hear athletes being like, well, I'm just not a good hitter, or I am terrible at defense, or like, I can't play goalie because I'm just really bad at it. And these things are actually true. They have become true because an athlete, they have thought this thought about themselves, and they've internalized some sort of like situation where they played goalie one time and they didn't do well, and they think like, I'm really bad. And then they just reinforce that thought over and over and over and over again. And they never challenge it. And then that thought becomes a belief about themselves, and beliefs drive our emotions and our actions. And so we try and get ahead of that. The analogy we give is like, the other day I was making a smoothie for my kids, and at the end, like at the, when you're done with the smoothie, in the glass, there's like all this smoothie like remnant, right? And when you clean it out right away, it's really easy. It's like, okay, we just clean out the glass. Glass is clear. Glass is like our mind. It's clear, on with the day. Okay. But if you're like me and like you forget the smoothie glass like in your car because you were like going somewhere, and or like my kids, they forget the smoothie glass like in their room somehow, and I find it 3 days later and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like stuck on smoothie, and it's like you cannot rinse it out. You have to like soak it. You gotta like chip away at it. It's like concrete. And that's what happens like when an athlete gets a thought in their brain that's like, I suck at this, or I'm not good, or she's better than me. If we like, she needs the skill to be able to challenge that right away. And that's like cleaning out the smoothie glass. We move on. She challenges it. She's like, is this true? How do I feel when I believe this? Okay, what can I change it to more productive? She's got these skills. She doesn't challenge it. It's like we're adding another hour onto the smoothie that's in the glass. Okay. And then she thinks a thought and reaffirms it. And then it's like adding 2 hours, and then it's adding a day. And then now it's like this thought has become so hardened in her that it's a belief. And we have to work really hard to uncover this limiting belief that's holding her back. And so, that like if our athletes can learn that skill early of realizing they don't have to believe everything they think, and they can grab a thought and hold it and be like, okay, this is not productive, and shift it to something new. Like, those limiting beliefs are the things that cause athletes to underperform, because they don't believe that they can, that they can outperform their belief about themselves. So,
Awesome. I love those tips, and I think a lot of people will start thinking about that and taking action on that immediately. And I do want to share your podcast and let everyone know that it is amazing. What's the name of it? The Elite Competitor Podcast?
yeah, the Elite Competitor podcast is there.
Perfect. So guys, check that out in the description below. And Breanne, where else can everyone find you if they want to get into one of your programs?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Elite Competitor Coach. And then we have a free training for sports moms that goes over our 3-step framework that we teach athletes in order to strengthen their mental game. So in that training, we just go over all the things that moms can do to help strengthen their athlete daughter's mental game. So that's a free training. It's at trainhergame.com. And so, yeah, we would love to see you there to start taking those little steps towards that.
And do you want to also plug the Costa Rica trip, because this
Oh,
is
yeah.
also very special?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So, yeah, Costa Rica trip. We do retreats every summer. Well, I say every summer because it's our second time. So, or we're there every summer. We do a mom-daughter retreat in Costa Rica, and it is, I mean, depending on when this is airing, it's July 1st through 8th, 2023. And we are just getting ready to open up pre-sale for that trip. We only have 6 spots. It fills up so fast, but basically this is a 8-day retreat. We partner with a surf and yoga studio, or surf and yoga retreat center in Uvita, Costa Rica, who are amazing. Bodhi Surf and Yoga. And we spend that time together, learning how to surf, doing yoga, and then also engaging in really powerful mindset lessons for athletes, for moms, and then mom-daughter connection. So it's just a really special time to connect with your athlete. We find moms and daughters are just so busy that they don't have time to actually like be together. And this is just a really great way to do that distraction free, get really great mindset lessons, learn how to surf, which is challenging in itself. We use all those lessons that we learn at being a beginner in surfing and yoga. So yeah, that is fun. You can find that all the information really at my Instagram is where you can find that. So,
Be sure to hop on that. I included the website link in the caption below. And I remember seeing Breanne's Instagram stories during this trip, and it just looks like a blast. So I know spots are going to definitely go quick for this one. But Breanne, thank you so much. This was a great discussion, and I will see everyone next week.
awesome. Thank you so much, Erica.